Welcome to Animal Walks Level 2. So today we're going to be moving through 9 different movements. We're going to be moving through them for a minute, and then you're going to have 30 seconds rest before we move on to the next movement. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate the movements that we're going to be doing, and whilst we're moving through the actual working set, I'll continue to give you more cues around it, okay? So I highly encourage you to follow along with the demonstrations just so that you can get moving, get a little bit warmer and familiarize yourself with these movements, okay? So the first exercise we're going to do is groin openers. So for this we want to be squatted down nice and deep. Ideally our heels are flat on the ground. So you can get there by wiggling around, warming up the ankles, and then eventually you'll be able to sink down. If you've got really tight ankles and Achilles, then you're going to want to use a plate or a book to stick that underneath your heel and allow for you to be in a deep squat without the strain of having elevated heels, okay? So find an elevation that allows you to sit down nice and deep with your weight evenly distributed through your feet. So from that position, we're going to grab the opposite ankle and we're going to have the other hand in front of our face, and we're going to draw our hand up to our nose, past our nose, and up towards the ceiling, maintaining eye contact with our hand the whole time. So we're trying to get deep rotation around the spine, okay? So that's going to be our groin openers. Then we're going to move into squat stance. So we're going to stay in our deep squat, with your heels elevated if needed, and we're going to place our hands, both hands, on the ground in front of us, and we're going to proceed to straighten our legs out, okay? And we want to make it challenging, okay? So if you're very mobile, you're going to try to pull your elbows towards the ground and keep your chest on your legs. So it's actually an effort to get your legs straight. Now, if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're quite tight, you'll find you can start with your hands on the ground, but then you get stuck. So at that point, you're going to just progressively lift your hands off the ground until you can come into a fully straight leg position. Now, if you're all the way up here to get your legs straight, that's completely fine. Just make it tough. Keep tension on your legs through the range. Okay, so it's not like, oh yeah, this is easy, right? We want to make it challenging, okay? So that's going to be the squat stance. Then we're going to move into ostrich walks. So for this, we're going to be taking little steps, and ideally both our legs are going to be straight. In the beginning, it's all right if your back leg bends, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to hinge at the hips, and we're going to bounce for 2. Step, bounce. Again, if you're not reaching the ground yet, if it's more like this, that's fine. If you have to bend the back leg a lot to get there, that's fine. So over time, we're going to work on these nuances and get the range that we're looking for to complete these movements with perfect form. After we've done our ostriches, we're going to move into duck walks. So we're going to be squatted down on one leg. Now, unlike level 1, we're going to add a little bit more detail here, okay? So we're not just sweeping forward like this, like we do in level 1. We're going to be squatted down on one heel. Our ankle is near our knee of the other leg. And we're going to open up to the side. And then we're going to drive the lead knee deep and shifting all our weight onto the lead leg's heel. Then we're going to step, okay? So we open, drive, step. We're trying to get this lead knee as deep as possible, but we don't want to rest it on the ground. Okay? So that's going to be your duck walks. Then after that, we're going to go into bear crawls. So bear crawls, we're going to be starting in a tabletop position. So flat back joints stacked. And then we're going to float. Then your knees are going to be just floating off the ground here, and we're going to keep them at that level. So as we travel forward, our knees stay low. So unlike in level 1, the knees would come up high and you do more or less whatever you want to make this bear crawl. We're going to be a lot more strict about it. So back flat, knees low, and we travel forward. We're trying to get our knee to our forearm as we travel forward. Then when we come backwards, we move our forearm to our knee again, okay? If we fail to get the wrist, so the forearm to the knee, the transition's going to get a bit confusing, all right? Don't stress about it too much. It's one of those things, if you overthink it, it overcomplicates it. Just try to maintain as much control as you can and pay attention to the level of your knees, all right? Keeping it nice and low, nice flat back. Then we're going to move into traversing apes. So like our ape walk in level 1, we've got a leg extended out to our side, squatted down deep on the other leg. It's okay if your heel's elevated at this stage, but over time we want to be nice and flat foot position here. From here, the goal is to keep our hips as low as possible while we transition to the other side to mirror the position that we're currently in. So transitioning through, getting my exit leg straight. Now this is where it's different. We turn it into a traversing walk. We push the ground away and we switch. Okay? We want to make sure that the leg's straight on entrance and straight on exit. All right? After ape walks, we're going to move into walking kick-ups. So a walking kick-up, we're going to take a step forward. The leg that we step forward with is going to stay low. Then we're going to shoot our hands to the ground and shoot our leg up high, okay? Whilst trying to keep this leg low, okay? It's going to build proprioceptive awareness, the ability to have familiarity of where your body is in space, right? So stepping forward, legs low, landing on the same lead leg, and then stepping forward on the next, and shooting up again, okay? The goal is to eventually come into a handstand more or less, but it's okay if it just looks like this at the moment. As you get more confidence, awareness, you'll be able to push taller, all right? So after our walking kick-ups, we're gonna move into leapfrogs. So for this, we come into a deep squat again. Ideally, the heels are flat. If they're not, it's okay. From here, we're going to dive forward. We're going to break the fall with our hands and pick our hands up immediately for our legs to land down smoothly, okay? So it's going to do a small one to show you what that looks like. We leap forward, break the fall, pick the hands up and drop the legs. If I don't pick my hands up, I might fall over, I might fumble. It's just not smooth. I want you to play with it and try to get as much distance as you can. All right, so diving and landing. Okay, so that's leapfrogs. Now we've got one more after that, and it's going to be cartwheels. So basic cartwheel, when you're learning, is the sweep from one side, from the outside, in towards the inside. The hands are going to be facing behind you, and then we're going to hop and twist in the air so that we land here. Okay, so it might look more like this, trying to get that rotation, and over time we try to work higher. Okay, sweet. So that's going to be our sequence, and we're about to get into it. All right, starting with groin openers. A minute from now, I'm going to call when it's halfway, and we'll change sides. So remember to be holding your ankle firmly with your opposite hand, and to be tracing your hand with your eyes and trying to get as much rotation through the spine as possible. Okay? What we want to avoid here is sweeping the hand out to the side. All right? So that's halfway. We'll move on to the other side. So when we draw the hand up to our face, past our face and up to the ceiling, it encourages maximal rotation around the spine, and it's going to open up the groin more. Whereas if we just sweep our hand out to the side, we're not going to get as deep of a rotation there or stretch through the groin. So just a couple more here. and that's the groin openers. So 30 seconds rest, and then we're into the next round. Right, now we're into our squat stance. So, hands on the ground, straightening the legs out. Come all the way down to a full deep squat at the bottom and come all the way up until your legs are completely locked out. All right, so if it looks more like this, that's fine. Just try to keep tension on the legs so that it's a struggle through as much of the range as possible. Okay, if you're super mobile, try to keep the chest on the legs the whole time. Deep squat, fully straighten out the legs. You can take this as slowly or as quickly as you like. Quality over quantity is usually the best measure. "30 seconds rest." All right, getting ready for Ostrich Walk. So trying to have both our legs straight, hinging at the hips, coming down and bouncing twice. Coming back up, stepping forward on the next leg, hinging and bouncing. If you have to bend the back leg, that's fine. Just try to keep at least the front leg straight, so warming up the hamstrings. Almost there. And time for another rest. Right, moving into duck walks. So we're open, we drive the lead knee deeper, and then we step. Open, drive, step. Now if it just looks like this at the moment, that's fine. If you're still floating a wee bit, that's fine. Just do your best, and you're going to get more mobility the more you practice this. All these movements are really good because they work stability, range, strength, and control. So you're getting mobile, which is strength with length. Okay, so you've got the capacity to have range, like flexibility, but you actually have control within that range. Okay? If balance is a huge issue, you can hold onto a broom in front of you. It'll help you stabilize into the next rest. All right, now we've got bear crawls. Come into your tabletop, floating the knees, keeping a flat back and traveling forward. Try to make sure your knees stay low so they're not rising up. And when we travel backwards, try to get the forearm to the knee. Through this transition, it's going to make it a lot easier and smooth when going backwards. It's a little bit confusing, I know. Don't overthink it. Just keep moving through the range, forward and back. And time for another rest. Traversing apes. Squatting down on one leg, extending the other leg out to our side, making sure the leg's nice and straight, transferring our weight to the other side, exit leg straight, pushing down, switching, and continuing. Do your best to make sure you get the entrance leg straight and the exit leg straight. Do your best to imagine there's an anchor in your groin essentially pulling you down through this transition. When we push here, the switch can be quick, or we can make it slow and have a little hover like this. Okay? It's all right if the heels are off the ground. Just do your best to get it on the ground as soon as possible through this transition, and you're going to gain mobility through the ankles. That's 8 books. Take a rest, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, getting ready for walking kick-ups. So we step forward with one leg, that's going to stay straight and low. We shoot our hands to the ground and we push tall. We land on the same leg that we step forward with first, and then we step forward on the next. Now you don't have to come into a standing handstand like that. Just do your best to get your hips high. It might look more like this. Hips aren't quite making it. Legs aren't getting high. That's okay. You're starting to build the strength and the awareness to get into a nice handstand position like this. Do your best to land on the leg you kick off with. So we've got an added balance component here. All right, rest, and then we have leaping frogs. All right, getting ready for the next exercise, leapfrog. In a deep squat, we dive and we break. I'll fall with our hands, landing with our feet. So I challenge you to go for distance here. See if you can get your legs straight in the air, okay? Try to be dynamic and explosive with these. Ten seconds to go. It's all right if you're not getting far. Little hops will do it too. Well done. Last 30 seconds rest. All right, and getting ready for our last set, cartwheels. So it's completely fine if you're like this, sweeping across the ground, hopping and turning. If you're doing this, you're just going to try to hop a little more with every step. See if you can get those legs straighter and higher. There is a little bit of a fear factor sometimes, and usually one side is a lot easier than the other side. It's completely normal. Keep practicing, and you'll find that you can move freely both sides. 10 seconds. 5. Well done. That concludes Animal Walks Level 2.